My inheritance has cost me. The car and gadgets are nice. And I've almost gotten used to the smell in the cave. It's the criminals. Since my father died, they've focused their attention on me.
Hey man, somebody killed this lady.
And the people around me. My father's enemies have gotten more twisted with age, more violent and suicidal.
Crashing destroyed with no survivors.
Because they know their inevitable end is near. They've seen Batman die. They've seen each other die.
I can't believe they killed him. Yeah, man, things are getting really bad out here.
The Riddler.
This puzzle is far more than any mere game.
Dr. Death.
You and I go way back, Batman.
Two-Face.
I still believe in Harvey Dent.
All gone. Like the life I hoped for beyond this mask. Everything I have, everything I am, is because of him. I'm the Batman's daughter. I am the Huntress. And tonight, I'm hunting the man who destroyed my life.
Hello and welcome to the Huntress Podcast. This is episode number 34, and we're going to cover Helena Wayne in this one. I'm Ashford, and along with me is Laurel. Hello, Laurel.
Hello, Ashford. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. And Diane, how are you doing over there?
Surviving, but otherwise doing okay. How about you, Ashford?
Same thing, and I think that's a good word to use, is surviving. We're going to talk about Batman Family number 18 in this one. And Laurel, can you give me the stats on this?
Yeah, we're going to have, writer is Paul Levitz. The penciler is Joe Staten. Inker Bob Layton, and it says on here, aided and abetted by Todd Klein as letterer, Adrian Roy colors, and Alan Milgram is our editor.
All right, so let's talk about, we did get some feedback about when we talked about, I guess, Batman Family number 17. Laura, what's something that you see there?
Well, we got sort of a generic comment on Twitter, which was really nice, complimenting us from Daxton Hunter. And that is at Holy Gothamite. It says, I've been listening since the beginning and have learned a lot due to the wealth of information that you provide the listeners. Thank you for your contributions to this particular fandom. I will keep listening. I thought that was very kind. Thank you for that. And if we've missed somebody on Twitter, I just apologize. We're doing the best we can to keep track of stuff. But this was very nice of them to post for us.
And I have here, back when we did Huntress episode 32, All-Star Comics 74, Tim wrote, the last issue of All-Star Comics. I was sorry to see it end so abruptly, but it was fun nonetheless. Power Girl struggling to adapt to a secret identity is ironic because, as Diane noted, her personally was completely different in civilian clothes. If she could just realize that channeling that insecurity and awkwardness would help her, that could be her Karen identity. But no, Kara is no method actress. The main quality I see in Huntress from this issue is her intelligence. I love that and hope it'll continue with more appearances. Loving it, Hun Trio. Thank you, Tim, for that. This is cool stuff. So far, we have 5 Patreon subscribers, and we are totally grateful for that. Alan Wright, no relation. Delvin, K. Say, Mark Ross. We have Tim Price, and if we can get it to 20, so 15 more subscribers on this podcast, Laurel, Diane, and myself, we will do a commentary on one of the Justice League Unlimited episodes that feature the Huntress. And we're going to start putting more exclusive content on the Patreon page. It's Patreon.com/Right On Network. But you can go to the website, thehuntress.podcast.com. Thanks to Diane, we have the Patreon button there where it can just be $1 a month, like every 30 days, $1. And that would be very appreciative so we can pay for hosting fees and all that good stuff. But now, hey, let's jump into this comic. What is this about?
Diane, I think you've got the summary for us.
Yeah, I do. So in the story A Choice of Destinies, featured in Batman Family number 18, we find ourselves in the offices of Cranston, Grayson, and Wayne, where a trio of public interest lawyers are having a meeting about new legislation that they want to propose. And out of the three lawyers, only Helena Wayne appears to be largely uninterested in the meeting's topic. Her mind is elsewhere. Specifically, she can't stop thinking about the suspicious wave of arson taking place in Gotham's South District, which is also the city's poorest district. She doesn't feel she is doing enough to help the disenfranchised there, which doesn't go unnoticed by her boss, Arthur Cranston. Despite her boss reminding Helena of her brilliance and talents as a lawyer, Helena Wayne remains unconvinced that she is doing her best work in a profession other equally qualified lawyers could handle. Instead, she feels she can do so much more to help the disenfranchised of South Gotham by exercising her unique talents as a daughter of Batman and Catwoman. The arson problem in South Gotham is a job for the Huntress. During her investigation in Gotham's South District, Helena, as the Huntress, discovers how unengaged the firefighters are with their work, treating the house fires as a regular occurrence. When she especially sees that they're unwilling to rescue some trapped people in a burning building, deciding the situation is too dangerous for them, the Huntress risks her own life to escort them to safety, barely getting out unscathed herself. Back on the street, Helena investigates the scene for any suspicious activity when she catches a glimpse of a young boy being paid by an older man to light another house on fire. Helena's initial suspicions that the arson is deliberate is therefore validated, and with this cliffhanger, we end Batman Family number 18. Until next time.
Hello friends, this is Mark from the Social Distance Warrior Podcast. In these crazy times, you probably have questions. Questions like, what happened to all the paper goods?
Paper goods?
Excuse me, do you have a tissue? No, I'm sorry, I can't spare it. There's just not enough to spare.
Why should I even care? No one I know has it.
Yeah, well, Newman, he's got it.
If you or a loved one displays symptoms, should you go see a doctor?
Grammy, you should really get that cough checked out by a doctor.
No doctors for me.
Please, if you have symptoms, contact your doctor.
Fine, I'll make an appointment.
What if I'm worried about catching it at my job?
All right. You think I've got germs? I'll give you some germs. How about some for your keyboard, huh?
For these and other questions, tune into the Four Who Rule, a Seinfeld podcast where they cover the original social distancers, Jerry, George, Elaine, and Kramer. And remember, wash your hands.
Even if you're not gonna soap up, at least pretend for my benefit. Turn the water on, do something.
Yeah, like I do.
Eat healthy.
Get yourself some vitamin C with rose hips and bioflavonoid.
Practice social distancing.
You gotta have a buffer zone.
And if you can, shelter in place and flatten the curve.
We're gonna be in the pool. We're gonna be in the clubhouse. We're gonna be all over that shuffleboard court. And I dare you to keep me out.
So anyway, yada yada yada. For more tips on stopping the spread, listen to the Social Distance Warrior Podcast and the Four Who Rule, a Seinfeld podcast on the RhinoNetwork.com or wherever you get your podcast. Until then,
You have a happy and a healthy.
All right, well, let's get to the discussion part. I'm going to just open us up a little bit here, initial impressions. I really like these issues. It's almost a complete issue to me in my mind because we have character development, we've got action, we've got mystery. There's all sorts of good things going on in this one. So I know we'll get more in depth in it, but my initial instinct was I really like this. I found her delightful as a character, as a young woman. Ashford, what did you think initially of this one?
I thought it was fun, and we got to see Helena in her civilian way, and then she was a hero. I mean, we just got to see some heroing going on. Diane, what do you think?
I think this is a very important chapter for Helena Wayne because not only are we finally seeing her first solo story since maybe her origin story in DC Superstars number 17, but we're also seeing, we're kind of getting a follow-up to that story as well. So if we remember from DC Superstars number 17, we learned the reason she became the Huntress was to get justice for her mother's death. Okay. So this story is basically cementing or establishing why she continued to be the Huntress even after she already fulfilled her task of capturing her mother's killer. So we learned from the JSA adventures that, she wanted to keep, being the Huntress, and that she definitely has a flair for it. She's very passionate about justice. But then we actually get to the details of why she continued to do so. And so with this particular story, we learned several things about her. First, we learned that she is a lawyer. This was not previously established in any of the stories we've featured so far. We've only known her as Helena Wayne, the daughter of Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle, and we knew her as the Huntress, but we did not know what she was doing with her life apart from that. So this is the first time that we actually see, what her life is outside of costume and how she feels about her life outside of costume. So this is a very, in my opinion, critical story for the Huntress, because now we get into the details of why she continues to do what she does and how she feels about her career of choice. So we know that she's a public interest lawyer in this story, but she doesn't seem too particularly interested in that profession. She doesn't seem to find the job fulfilling. And so she decides that, okay, there is more that I can do. And I'm not willing to wait for legislature to get passed, or I'm not willing to have that, go through that process of you propose a bill, it gets debated, and then it goes into the Constitution or whatever. And then she's like, no, I don't have time for that. I can do so much more as the Huntress. And so why wait for the law when you can actually enforce it? And so I like that we get all those details, and then we actually get to see Helena Wayne in action as a detective, and we also see how she responds to dangerous situations when she really doesn't have time to think. So this is an all-around great start. This is actually a 3-part story, but the first part immediately has me interested in finding out what she plans to do after this point. So yeah, it's definitely a great issue, but I'm ready to read the next part.
Well, I think you're definitely right. She is trying to find herself here. I feel like she has split thoughts. Does she want to do just Huntress? Does she want to do just Helena Wayne lawyer? Or, she's debating that. I found it interesting on the opening splash page. We get her looking into the window, and the reflection back at her is the Huntress. And yes, that's okay. That's a neat artifact. I get that, for art, that's neat. But it's also the fact that, when you sort of look at yourself in the mirror and this is what's reflected back at her, that, is that the person that she sees when she looks in the mirror? That kind of I know, symbolism-wise, that just struck me as interesting, because you get the dichotomy right there on the splash page. The one thing that really bothered me in the opening sequence where we get her is the sexual harassment that's going on. We have this other character that I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
Roger.
Thank you. And he says, he says such awful things. And her boss, doesn't really stick up for her in front of him. He's like, oh, well, he's embittered. I'm like, why does she have to worry about his embitteredness because he didn't make partner and she did? I'm like, what? Why does she have to put up with this? And then he even goes so far as to say, well, and that's not really what's bothering you. And I'm looking at it like, in any romance book I've ever read, that's a signal that there's a relationship twig there, that there's some sort of attraction. And I thought, oh my goodness gracious, I do not like where that is going at all. Strong feelings. Ashford, sounds like you got some too.
Yeah, that's how I read it at first too, when he said, that's not what's really wrong. So I was like, wait a minute, is he implying romance? And then he points to the newspaper like, no, you're really upset that you're not doing more. But that's still not good either, because, of course, he's telling her what her feelings really are to herself. Mm-hmm. I guess this came out in late 70s.
1978. So yeah, late 70s.
Yeah. So I've seen this scene played out in so many things where it's like, that's just Roger. They're saying that you're a male chauvinist and all that. And then, you're a pig. And then it's kind of like, that's just the motions we go through. But that seemed very familiar with TV that I would watch as a kid, where people would play out these archetypes. So yeah, we're seeing Helena go through it. We're especially at that law firm, and yeah, I didn't think about that. I think what's interesting about this is this whole thing of we see her origin, you know, so far on this podcast, we're going through her run linear, where it's, you know, the origins of why she became Huntress, who she is. Now she's on this team. Now we're seeing that, she's going to eventually be a partner. So this is something where she can just choose to like, well, I'm just going to go into my career, but it's that calling that's calling her out to the, to be Huntress. But yeah, Diane, what did you think about this scene with the sexism and the chauvinism?
So, I'm probably showing my age in this, but I did not interpret this as romantic attraction from Roger's part. I felt that he was just being a jerk. So I thought that he was just being, you know, a sexist, unprofessional jerk in this scene. And he's basically, and a lot of what he's saying here would not actually fly in any professional setting. You know, no one would, he's commenting on the fact that she's good looking and that she's got money. And that's not really an appropriate thing to say to a coworker. And yeah, I honestly did not feel that he was actually, you know, attracted to Helena in this at all. And I did not see it as a hint of, you know, this is going to blossom into romance later. And yeah, it's just, it was a weird scene because it was very unprofessional. You know, any boss would have actually scolded him for saying those things to Helena. But, you know, I find Helena's boss very, very lax. And so even though he kind of reminds her, hey, you've got talent, you know, you graduated, you know, Harvard University Law School at age 21. So she's way ahead of the curve. And she was also an editor at a law magazine, I think it was. And
at her college in Harvard, yes.
Yeah, so she was an editor at a law magazine. So he's like, oh, you're talented. You definitely belong here. And he's not, that's kind of the extent of Roger's, I guess you could say, validation of Helena. So he likes having her at his law firm, but he's not very, he doesn't really, you know, how should I say? He doesn't really say anything to Roger about his behavior and his lack of professionalism. And I found that rather alarming for this particular scene. You know, don't they have sexual harassment or harassment rules at this law firm? That's what I found myself asking.
Yeah, and as a young woman, you know, it's hard to start out in business. And then to have this immediately, I can see where she's not speaking up too hard for herself here because it is confusing. And you're looking to her boss, which is an older man, for guidance. And he's sort of not making a point of this. So you're like, well, am I supposed to just accept this as part of my job? You know, you have that hesitation. And that was kind of awful. I hope that gets a better resolution in the end. One of the things about this little story here, I had to sort of put my head in the, okay, this is a story written in the late 70s space so that I would know we get a lot of these internal, thought balloons instead of the little monologue boxes that we get today. So I was like, okay, remember that. But you know what? I found that they really worked here. And it's weird. I used to read Spider-Man, late 90s, early 2000s. And it was right before they switched over to doing that. And they still had thought balloons. And I don't know why that popped into my head. Maybe it's the only place I really read something with a lot of thought balloons. But it was this same kind of thing where she's thinking to herself, this youth, this energy. Yes, she's a little naive, a little inexperienced. But it's completely endearing. She's sort of like, whoops, you know, I got to fix this. I'm going to try to do that. And that just really worked for me. It really made her into a character I could get behind. I just thought she was a sweet person trying to do the right thing and determined to do it. And I really like that youth and energy.
And you learn a lot about her and her inner thoughts.
Yes, you do. And her father telling her, giving her advice about what to do. I guess he's been training her, I would assume, or giving her life lessons, so to speak. I did have one little hang up. I'm not sure if you guys think about this one. When she does run off to change into Huntress to go help fight those fires to investigate, and she says this law firm used to have Dick Grayson, or still has him as one of the partners, because his name is in it. And she says, well, he may have been able to put aside his training and become a diplomat and try to save the world from itself. But I'm not just a child Bruce Wayne brought up. I'm his flesh and blood, and there's no way that I can deny it. And I thought, okay, wait a minute. Is she empowering herself, or is she looking down on Dick Grayson for being just a child he brought up? How did you read that one? I don't know. Which one of you want to answer that?
So I understand where some people are coming from when they read that line from Helena Wayne. Personally, for me, I interpret it as, you know what, I'm not just another kid that, Bruce Wayne picked off the street. I'm his flesh and blood. So I think I interpreted that more as her, confirming to herself that, you know what, I have an obligation here. So it's not just, if I'm a daughter of Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle, I need to absolutely do something with that, So yes, Selena Kyle is Catwoman. She used to rob from the rich, namely to empower herself, and her father, fought criminals as Batman. And so she kind of feels like she needs to uphold that legacy in some capacity, and she doesn't feel like she's fulfilling that legacy as a lawyer. So she felt that she can make a better contribution as a Huntress. And that's something that she literally mentions in the second half of that page. She's like, you know what? I can make a bigger contribution using my unique skills. This thing that I'm doing with this law firm, anyone can do this job. Anyone with a law degree, that is, can do this job. But I, on the other hand, I am not just another lawyer, and I'm certainly not just another kid that, Bruce Wayne picked off the streets. I am his flesh and blood. I have, I guess you could say, a responsibility to uphold that legacy that my father had, and I need to do something with that. And it's kind of also bleeding into the other problem that she's having here, and that's the fact that she's not really getting any job satisfaction working at this law firm. She doesn't feel like she's doing enough to help the people in South Gotham, especially since she's aware of the arson that's happening in the Gotham's poorest district, and no one's really doing anything about that. And so when she actually goes there to investigate later, she notices, just how, unaffected the firefighters are to be, putting out another torched house. And she's like, something's wrong here. So we do see that Helena Wayne is kind of thinking about, where she really fits, where does she really make, a contribution in a meaningful way as a partner of Cranston, Grayson, and Wayne. She doesn't feel like she's really doing much, and even less so when you've got a sexist co-worker, making comments on your body and other things. But she's also thinking of, I've got unique skills that no one else possesses. I cannot just, sit here and do nothing with that. So let me go out into the world and use those skills to full capacity and actually make a difference in someone's life. So yeah, I understand why people take issue with her Dick Grayson comment. I don't think she was looking down on him, because she actually does like him, and that's something that we'll talk about in a later story. But yeah, I think she's thinking more of the fact that, that she is Bruce's biological daughter, so she therefore has a responsibility to that legacy, to her father's legacy at least.
Mm-hmm.
To go into the family business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, she certainly shows off her skills in this fire scene. We've got this big action sequence, because she's got to improvise quite a bit in here. And I loved, there was a scene where the roof sort of caved in, and she's, I guess, on the next floor down or something like that. And is that her symbol from her belt? Is she using her belt buckle, Diane? Does that detach? That she's using it to sort of bang into the wall and working her way down the wall with it?
Yeah, that's definitely her belt buckle. So yeah, it is actually detachable, which is actually one thing I found interesting in this story. So she's got like a H on her belt, and it's not just an ordinary H. You can actually take it off and actually climb a wall with that, or go down a wall. I'm not sure what she's doing there. I honestly thought she was climbing a wall and then jumping off of it at some point. But yeah, the belt buckle does actually come off, and the H in particular actually comes off.
Yeah, I thought maybe she was using it to slide down. Like good old Errol Flynn would stick the knife in the sail and slide down.
Yeah, I think
that maneuver.
I think the fact that there's fire on the ground there is why I think she's moving up and not down. I wouldn't go where the flame is.
Gotcha. That does make sense. That's probably not a good place to be. I do love her perky little comments that she gives herself, which are just sweet. They're so endearing. Ground, I love you, crumbling cement sidewalks and all. And that's so cute. She had a whole bunch of these little things that I just thought were so cute. And her character really worked for me this issue. I do have a question. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Diane.
Yeah, I think that, going back to those comments that she's making to herself, I think that's her way of staying calm in a very scary situation. She's about to get torched herself. She's like, crap, I need to get out of here as soon as possible. And she's got, the way that she looks, and this is brilliant artwork by Joe Staton here, the way that she looks, it looks like her heart's racing at 100 beats per minute. Mm-hmm. So she's trying to hightail it on out of there as quickly as possible before things really get worse. So yeah, I think that all those comments that she makes to herself is just her coping mechanism, or rather she's trying to stay calm as best as possible. So thinking to herself, or I think she's speaking out loud here. Yeah, she is. So I think she's just kind of telling herself, okay, you can do this, just pretend that you're on a volcano or something.
Remain calm.
It's just like, just think of yourself as going mountain climbing with your dad, but you stupidly decided to, climb the inside of a volcano instead of outside of it. I really love that panel. Really love that panel there. She's just think of it as, you went mountain climbing, but you went inside of a volcano instead of outside of it. And then she finally makes it to the pavement there. So yeah, that whole sequence right there is just brilliant. I like the fact that Joe Staton and Paul Levitz are showing, okay, yeah, she's definitely a quick thinker in a very dangerous life and death situation there. She's like, okay, so a ton of bricks fell on top of me and I really got to hightail it on out of here somehow. Stairs are probably gone, the rope is gone. How do I get out of this situation? So she climbs a wall and and she just finds a safe pavement to land on. And that whole sequence is brilliant. We actually
definitely.
We had quick thinking skills. Yeah.
Ashford, what'd you think about all this nice action sequence here?
One thing I do like is that it seems like Helena Wayne she wants to inject the human aspect into her crime fighting. So apparently in the south side of Gotham, there's been a lot of arson going on. And when she shows up on the scene, she says that the firefighters, they're blasé about what's going on because I guess it's happening so often. And she wants to take the blasé part out of it and be more direct and more immediate. So I like that about her character too. She's saying that something needs to be done. And like you guys were mentioning earlier about she doesn't want to be patient with the law process. It's going to take too long. The South Gotham will be lost by then. She wants to take immediate action and get down to the bottom of it. So I did like that because again, we're learning something else about our character. Mm-hmm. Seeing her juxtaposed to folks that are just carrying on.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and she saves those guys. Folks, I should say. I mean, she does save people.
She saves people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I happened to notice that the people that she ended up rescuing in that scene were actually elderly people. And who was it that said, that one of the firefighters says, stay back. That building may collapse anytime. We can't go in there. And she's like, well, maybe you won't, friend, but the Huntress will. But I noticed that on the previous panel, when the firefighters are putting out the fire, that one guy just has that look on his face of, just another day. We're just kind of validating.
Yeah.
Just kind of validating Helena's point about how they're just not really thinking about it. It's just like, well, another day, another fire. I'm just doing my job. And
I'm just trying to get through my shift.
It's like, that's so terrible. And then you've got this elderly people on that one floor and this other firefighter saying, yeah, we can't go in there. We'll just leave them to their fate. And she's like, nah. I'm going to go in there and get them out as best as I can. And she actually did put herself in danger there because she actually walked into a building with fire. And as soon as she rescued I think it was 3 people on there. Was it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when she rescued the 3 people that were stuck in that building, she actually fell back inside the building. So the building did actually collapse right under her. And she's like, okay, I really need to hightail it on out of there. But yeah, she actually risked her life to save those 3 people at the firefights. She's like, nah, I'm not going in there.
Yeah.
This is a hero story.
I do have one question, well, 2 actually, that are sort of weird comic questions. Where is she getting the dress and stuff to change out of Huntress and back into her lawyer togs? It's like she's behind this burnt out wall, and would she storm nearby? I was like, okay, what? That was sort of weird.
You know, I always ask myself that same question when I get to that part of the story, because when we see her inside the lift, she actually takes off her clothes inside that lift, and we don't see her with a bag. She doesn't walk in with a bag. And she just leaves her clothes right there in the lift. So whoever needed to use that lift afterwards found Helena Wayne's clothes in there. So she took off, and she had her Huntress costume underneath. But then I'm wondering, but she was wearing short boots in this scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
with
where
the
did the
knees showing.
Yeah, so where did she get the short boots from? So yeah, I was wondering about that as well. You know, did she actually carry her clothes? And I guess the way I can think of it is if Power Girl did not actually get those clothes out of the lift for her, because she does live in Gotham. Power Girl does.
I do have a question for you that you may have more knowledge of. I was surprised why she needed to change back into these clothes at all, why she couldn't come out and talk to them as Huntress, you know, as a hero. Maybe she wants to stay in the shadows, I don't know, but being part of the JSA, I would think she's sort of out in the world, so people would know her a little bit. But when the EMT is helping the old folks, they've got their blanket and everything, he's checking them out, and he says, oh, they've hallucinated that they were saved by somebody in a Halloween costume. And I'm like, is she supposed to be known or not known?
So in this particular scene, the way that I interpreted it is that she's hiding in plain sight. So she doesn't, if the Huntress is there, whoever is actually starting these fires could actually run away if she's actually present there as Huntress. So she's hiding in plain sight to find out more about what's going on. So if she poses as one of the civilians there, one of the concerned civilians, she can probably see, look for any suspicious activity is what I think she was trying to do. And she actually does find, suspicious activity. But if she had, been hanging around as the Huntress there, the assailant probably could have ran away. And she was probably trying to avoid that. So, yeah, I think hiding in plain sight was the best course of action for her to take here, because if you're trying to find out information and you don't want to, and if she goes there in her Huntress costume, if she asks questions, people can lie to her. But if she's just there as a civilian, they'll probably be more honest. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think that's what she was thinking of, is that, she was hiding in plain sight just to basically find out what's going on, in this entire, scene that she just rescued some people in. And she's basically looking for suspicious activity and specifically suspicious people. And she can't do that if she's there as a Huntress, because then that suspicious person will know to run or to duck.
Mm-hmm,
So,
Well, and I like this outfit. Speaking of fashion here, I do like her lawyer outfit. It was a really neat dress with the knee-high boots. It suits this time period without being hideous, I guess. Some of the styles get a little crazy. I really like this one. We end with the mystery. We've had character development. We've had action. Now we get the rest of the mystery coming. Some clues coming out. Man paying a child. Now, how reprehensible. I mean, her mouth is hanging open. That they are using this child to set up all this arson stuff.
That was kind of chilling. It was like, oh man. So it's like, I hope this kid doesn't face harm's way.
Yeah, blow himself up or hurt himself playing more or less with this bomb. It was like, oh my gosh. That was just down and dirty for somebody to be doing this. Of course, we don't see who that is. And when she tries to chase down the alley, I do like that the shadow has the ears, like when she has her mask on, it makes that shadow, but she's still in her civilian clothes. And of course, the guy is gone, but she can't figure out where he might have gone. There was no way out of I guess it's an alley that she runs into. So now we have, the continuing question of, how are these getting set? And now we have some clues to work with. Overall, like we were saying earlier, the art was wonderful. her facial expressions, everybody's facial expressions, to be honest. This really was some nice work. I'm reading it on the DC Universe app, so I do have the bright colors, but they work for me here. Ashford, you like this art too?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Just that, and we're familiar with him on this Huntress podcast, and it's very inviting. And even though like it's not harsh when scary things are happening or turmoil, like, you know, we're worried for Helena in that fire. You know, we're worried for Helena when she is distressed, dealing with the casual sexual harassment in the workplace. Mm-hmm. But it's not like, sometimes in some of these books, especially like the ones we're reading with Helena Bertinelli, like it's harsh. And in this one, I feel like it's softer, but when wild things are happening, you're there. Mm-hmm. Diane, what did you think about the art?
Well, I think in juxtaposition to the work that Joe Staton did with the Joey Cavalieri Huntress series with Helena Bertinelli, the tone of that story was very dark. So the artwork was very gritty looking, and we've got, you know, very dark colors to accompany that. So, of course, compared to that, you know, this story is a stark contrast. You've got, you know, Helena Wayne, and her entire world is more brightly lit, I guess you could say. She wears bright colors. You know, the world that she inhabits is very brightly colored. So I guess you could say that Earth 2, the thing that gets conveyed about Earth 2 is that it's a very optimistic world. It's not, you know, a world full of cynicism and nihilism. You know, bad things happen on Earth 2, but not, you know, to a dire, depressing degree. And I think that's definitely one thing that the artwork conveys here by Joe Staton with Adrian Roy. I think it's Adrian Roy who does the colors on this story. But yeah, the thing that really stands out about the artwork here is that it's very expressive. The motion there is very fluid, you know, and this is something that we've talked about in the JSA All-Star Comics issues as well. You know, when it comes to drawing action sequences, Joe Staton is very good at drawing fluid motion. You know, you actually get a sense of danger, you know, in that scene where Helena Wayne actually falls through the roof there. And especially on that second panel where it's just bright red and yellow, and you kind of get a sense that she's going to fall into the fire there. And when we see her in the next panel, you know, she lands on rubble, I think, and debris. So, but you do get that sense of tension there in that one panel before you realize, okay, so she's safe, but she still needs to get out of there. But yeah, the artwork is very well done here. You know, the facial expressions are brilliant. Specifically with this story, we see Helena Wayne's determination. We also see that she's not fully experienced in these situations, but we also see that, you know, she's a very expressive character. Whenever she's in a situation, she actually reacts to it in a way that feels natural. So when we see, you know, a determined huntress, you know, dashing inside that one building, and then suddenly she's in danger, you see that scared look on her face. And then when you see her out of that building, you know, she's got that look of relief. And then when she finally, you know, mingles with the people that are there, kind of witnessing all of this unfold, you know, she kind of pretends to be one of the crowd to try and get information, most notably in that one panel where she goes, oh, you know, and there's a guy there saying, what you say is very fine, doctor. And then he goes on to talk about, you know, how none of this is going to be forgotten. So yeah, so she's kind of pretending to be one of the crowd there. So he's very good at capturing body language. He's very good at capturing facial expressions in particular. So Staton is really great in this issue as well. You know, and then of course,
I'm sorry, you were saying about movement, and so I started paging through to look, and you are so right. The dress is moving, the hair is moving, the cape is moving, and even like when she's changing clothes in the elevator, you can see like the way that she's worked her way out of the shirt arms, and you feel like they're still moving, and then flowing from scene to, from panel to panel works as well. So it's a really nice combination on that.
Yeah, definitely. And then of course, you know, she's always constantly moving. You know, when we get to the last page where she finally gets a clue in the first panel, she's kind of in the background there. So you see that one kid in the foreground receiving money for his work on this one building that he torched. And she's got that shocked look on her face. I know you kind of have to zoom in to see that. But she's like noticing suspicious activity, and she's like, oh, there's something going on here. And then when she finally gets a closer look and she sees that there's a firebomb or something, being handed to this kid, she's genuinely shocked. And so she tries to run, so there's a lot of impulsivity in that one panel where she just kind of runs for it, to try and see what's going on and stop the person, whatever she's trying to think of. But you see the determination as well as the shock. So the way that Joe Staton transitions between shocked to horrified and, I got to do something about this. You see the determination on her face followed by another look of shock. Staton is really good at, pacing himself and flowing that naturally from panel to panel. He just really does a great job there.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well, I found her in this issue really endearing. I got to admit, there are times when I'm like, this is a character and I'm following because they're this character. And that happens in comics. I think we all have that where we have a certain person that we follow around just because we've always followed them around. But to find out that this is this new character and to like her so much, I like her perkiness, I like her determination, I liked her internal monologue to herself. I mean, it was just, she's a nice young woman doing her best, trying to find her place in the world, and yet we have this action sequence and we have a mystery and it's all in 10 pages. There was a lot going on. I really liked that.
Yeah, she certainly has a lot of personality, the Helena Wayne character does, and and of course it's a huge contrast to Helena Bertinelli. When we first met Helena Bertinelli in the Joe Staton and Joey Cavalieri series, she was very withdrawn, and she was kind of, she internalized so much of her feelings in a way that Helena Wayne does not in, the pre-crisis stories. So it's always interesting to see that, contrast between these two versions of the character, and even more so when you take into account that DC thinks of the Huntress as one character with two different origin stories, so it doesn't make sense to me, but that's them. But yeah, when you look at the way Helena Wayne was originally developed in the pre-crisis continuity, she was actually very expressive. She actually had a well-developed, very well fleshed out personality. She's got quirks. She's got moments when she's vulnerable. She's got moments when she gets genuinely angry. And when she gets genuinely angry, you don't want to mess with her then. So the thing about Helena Wayne is that you learn right away what her values are and what's important to her. And when she finds herself in a situation that's completely out of her control, then that's when you really see her quick thinking skills. But when she's especially provoked, she can also get extremely violent. And we haven't seen that yet in this part of the narrative. But yes, she's a character that's full of personality, and I think it's very easy to see why so many people love this character, especially in the pre-crisis continuity, and why JSA fans in particular have been asking for decades for this character to make a return, because while Helena Bertinelli is a great character in her own right, she also doesn't bring the same things to the table that Helena Wayne does,
Mm-hmm.
And so I think in the past 2 decades, from the 2000s through the 2010s, DC's been trying to find a way to integrate this character back into the main continuity, but have not been able to figure out how to do so successfully. My solution, I think, is a lot simpler. Just retcon her death in Crisis on Infinite Earths and just bring her back with power. If she has to be another Earth 2 character stuck on the main Earth like Power Girl, that's perfectly fine. I'll live by that, even if it's not what I prefer for the character. But yeah, I think that DC is kind of, thinking too much about how do we get this character integrated without, changing Batman and Catwoman. I'm like, you don't have to change Batman and Catwoman. Just retcon the Crisis death and just reintegrate her with the JSA. Reinstate her friendship with Power Girl and you're good, Mm-hmm. There's really nothing to change here. She's perfect the way she is, as we clearly notice in this one story alone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't have anything more on this one. Diane, you have any more last words you want to say, or you want to end there?
I think for this particular story, we covered all the basics. We've learned, what she's actually doing when she's not with the JSA. She's got a law firm that she's a partner in, and she's not really satisfied with that job. So she's kind of, deciding that she likes being the Huntress more. And then we actually see how she operates when she's not with the JSA. So this is actually her first story where we actually see her run solo, how she actually, how she actually handles dangerous situations when she does not have the JSA with her to, whisk her out, like, when she fought the Paula Brooks Huntress at the JSA headquarters in the last story that we talked about. So I think it was great seeing, how she actually works on her own. And we see that although Helena Wayne doesn't quite know all the ups and downs of being a superhero, she actually does fine with with the situations that she's in. She found herself in a dangerous situation and she managed to save herself without the assistance of Alan Scott, for example, or the assistance of Power Girl. So this was a great opportunity to really see how she handles herself as a hero when she's not surrounded with other heroes to help her out in dangerous situations. So I think that we're seeing more of Helena Wayne's skills when she's running solo, and we actually see how she handles things on her own. So it's not quite the same as what her father would do in a situation, but she does it in her own way, and I think it's great to see.
Ashford?
Well,
sorry.
Yeah,
go ahead.
The next story we'll cover when we talk about Helena Wayne will be Batman Family number 19. But we do want to hear your thoughts about what happened in this one, and you can write to us on Twitter at Huntress Podcast. You can go to the website of thehuntress.podcast.com. We are on Spotify. You just have to go to the Batgirl /Huntress Podcast, and we're on Spotify. We're also on Apple Podcasts. You can support the show by giving us a 5-star rating, writing a review. And again, if you go to the website, thehuntress.podcast.com, we also have the Patreon button if you would like to be a patron, $1 a month. So until next time, we'll catch you later. Bye-bye.